you'll be one of the first audiences in Canada to hear some of the new stuff that I've written during the pandemic. Nick, Andrew, and I, we went to the studio in August for 2 days and recorded a whole new album, and we'll play a couple of those new tunes for you already, and then we'll mix in a couple of our favorites from First Spring, from our latest release.
Great. And what are there any musical themes or anything you're kind of exploring? I just want to dig into your music a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So First Spring, that's all about arrangements of folk and country tunes. The new stuff, I took a little bit of a different approach. It's mostly original material. And I really got into post-minimalist classical composers such as Nico Muhly, Bryce Dessner, Philip Glass as well. So I tried to use some of their compositional techniques and transfer those to the setting of the piano trio. So we'll hear a lot of ostinatos, different repetitive structures set against each other. I try to change up the instrument roles. You'll hear Nick play the melody and the drum set sometimes, or me holding down accompaniment while bass and drums play more melodic parts. So I really try to look at a different angle at composing for a jazz piano trio.
So I know you've toured a fair amount in Europe, and you seem to have like a strong foothold. So I have my question is, what's something you really like about the European music scene? And then if there's something you really like about the Canadian music scene?
That's a great question. It's one to think about a little bit, but I'll try just to come up what comes to mind. First, I like about the European music scene, or let me maybe talk about the jazz scene, that it's really, really open to all kinds of influences. Like it's okay to combine anything and everything, and you got the Scandinavian scene that has its own vibe. You got the French scene. There's a lot of avant-garde stuff happening, some traditional as well, but it's very modern and open and free. Great players there as well. Maybe not as much focus on the tradition as you would find in the United States or in Canada. That's the big difference I noticed switching from Europe to the US at first, that there's more focus on like swing and even earlier styles in New Orleans, just more of the roots and groove and swing, and like you gotta master that first before you can go on somewhere else. Whereas in Europe, it's more common that someone maybe doesn't get too deep into tradition and just does his own thing right away. And both things have their advantages.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Talking about Canadian scene, it's a bit of a combination. I find you have the great tradition and roots that you find in the States as well, but it's also a very, very open scene that's very inviting, and where people are also experimenting with all kinds of styles, combining different things, right? You got a great crossover composers as well within the jazz scene, David Braid or Andrew Downing, Darren Sigismund, right? They're jazz players, but then they also write these really interesting classical works. And that for me is a great example of what the Canadian jazz scene is like.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, maybe I'll ask you a question for the mainstream audience. Why should sounds funny asking, but I'm just going to ask you.
No, go ahead.
Why should I come to your concert? What am I getting? You know what I mean? Like, really?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Well, at all our shows, we try to have lots of access points for people who did not study jazz or not regular jazz listeners. We really try to bring everyone in by thinking outside the genre. So we just try to transmit our enjoyment of music. You know, there's a lot of groove and energy and melody. It's not going to be so abstract that no one can follow, right? There will be intricate and complex motives and elements that maybe a studied jazz musician can enjoy, but there's also all of this more intuitive music making that any music fan, I think, will appreciate.